Last time we built the Docker image for a .NET project and safely stored in the Azure Container Registry using Azure DevOps YAML pipelines. We also tested it by applying that image to an Azure App Service through the Azure portal. But how do we deploy it to the Azure App Service as part of the release process? Through pipelines. Welcome back to OmegaCodex, and I am Sanal. If you have mastered the art of building and pushing images to Azure Container Registry with the previous video, you are ready to take the next step. Today, we are delving into how to deploy those Docker images from ACR directly to the Azure App Service, making your deployment process smoother and more automated. We will extend our existing pipeline, which we built in the last video, ensuring your applications are not just containerized but also efficiently deployed. So if you have missed the last video, you can follow the link here to watch it. I have also added the link in the description box below. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back, and we'll continue with the same pipeline which we used in the earlier video. So I'll just edit the pipeline and let's do a quick recap. So we had a trigger on this YAML pipeline, then we had set up an agent pool which we wanted to use. It's a Microsoft hosted agent. Then we had set up a variable for tag with using the build ID, and then we had set up our build stage. And in the build stage we had two tasks for Docker build and Docker push. You also have an option to do build and push together. So just to demonstrate it separately, I had created two separate tasks. Now after that, we had created an Azure App Service, and then we had directly set up the app to use a particular image with a particular tag. So we cannot go to Azure portal every time to change the version of or the tag of the image which we want to use. So the better approach is to make it part of your deployment process. So let's come back to the YAML pipeline and add a new stage. Now we are putting a new stage because we want to separate these operations. So we're building the build process is happening in a different stage, and then we can have the deployment process in a different stage to give us better control on the whole process flow. So if you are new to multi-stage YAML pipelines, you can watch this video, and here I have explained in detail what is a multi-stage YAML pipeline and how we can set up different stages and build the whole pipeline. So for this stage, let's call it deploy to dev. Let's have a display name, call it deploy stage, and then we'll have our jobs. Now for this purpose, we'll have a different kind of job called as deployment job. You could also use it, do it using the jobs keyword, but with deployment you get more options. So we'll just call it again deploy to dev. Let's have the display name as deploy to dev, and we'll set up the environment as dev, and then we'll have strategy as run once, and then we'll have our deploy stage or deploy step, and inside that we have the steps option. So now we are at the same position where we were in the previous stage as well, that is steps, and after that it's the similar process. So for this we will have a different task called as, search for it, Azure Web App Container. So this task lets you deploy to a Azure web app with containers. So for this, let's just select the service connection and the Docker web app. Now we'll have to put an image name. So let's just come to our container registry and just copy this, and our repository name was Docker web app. Let's just copy this, and we will need to have tag, so that we have as part of our variable. We don't need a startup command and we are good. Just push it so that it is properly aligned. Now let's just improve it a bit. So we have Docker web app being repeated everywhere. Let's just copy it and call it image repository, and we'll create a variable as image repository, and we'll call it dash another, and we can use the same variable name in these places. Okay, maybe let's just put a variable for this also. Container registry, just copy this so that we don't have any typos. So yeah, and I think we are done. So let's just validate pipeline. Again, as in the previous video I said, ideally you should create a new branch, peer review it, and then merge the pipeline. But for now I'm just committing it directly to the master branch. And now we have two beautiful icons, two different stages, and let's see how it goes. Let's open this stage and see how is it going. Let's give it a few seconds. This is done. Okay, so now since we are running this stage for the first time, then we will need to approve it just to use the environment dev. So we had mentioned environment as dev, and I'll just brief on it in a while. Job is pending and it is deploying to the Azure web app. So here we were deploying the version or the tag 168, and now it is trying to put 169. It has applied the settings and then it is restarting. Let's come to our web app and refresh it. Now see, the image tag has been updated to 169. So what this step essentially does is it just updates the container image which it has to use, and then restarts the app, so the new container image is automatically loaded and pushed into the app service. In an ideal scenario, you should probably use a deployment slot and then pull the image to that slot and then swap it so that you'd have no downtimes. Let's open this and see if the app is running. So this is good, app is running. One more thing I would like to show is to apply. Okay, I was talking about environments. So we didn't create any environments per se. When we were setting up the pipeline, we only mentioned the environment as dev. And what it does is it automatically creates an environment in this environment page with a name, whatever name we have mentioned. And it shows what all deployments were there in this environment. And here you have some approval gates which you can manage when you are doing when you are working with environments. So like you can have approval gates, you can have branch controls, you can have some exclusive logs, you can invoke an Azure function if you want, you can invoke REST API as part of your pipeline, even ensure that pipeline extends one or more YAML pipelines. So yeah, quite a lot of options. The most commonly I think used is the approval gates. Like for example, you are deploying to production or you are deploying to a QA or non-production stage, and you want approval of a lead or a product owner for that to happen. So you could use the approval gate, and then you can add the name of approvers. Say like if I add mine, and you have allow approvers to approve their own run, timeouts, and instructions, any instructions you want to send for the approval. So this way you can set up an approval gate for your development for your stage. So when the deployment reaches that stage, this approval workflow will be triggered, and it can only proceed if the approval is given for that particular stage. So now I wanted to show something else. Let's again go and edit the pipeline, and what we will do is just open the repository as well. So in app setting JSON, we have this default connection strings. So let's come and try to apply those app settings in our deployment task. So we can just open the task by clicking on the settings option, and in app settings, let's just come here and apply a different value. This is from pipeline. Okay, let's add it. This is a very crude example. You would ideally have a variable name here and then pull it through a variable. So again, this I had explained in the multi-stage YAML pipeline video. So let's just validate and save. Let's open stage. I did some mistake. Oh, sorry, my bad. I've missed a hyphen in the beginning. Yeah, for each configuration setting, it should start with a hyphen, and then you mention the name. So if you have a nested property, then you separate it with double underscore, and it would work. So let's see, and now it is applying the correct app settings, and the image tag is 171 now. So the last one was 169, then I think the previous build which failed, so it was 170, and this is 171. So looks like it's done. Let's refresh and check. So now it is using the image 171. Let's refresh our Docker app and see what it is getting. So now you see that the connection string applied is from what we sent from the pipeline. This way you can apply the app settings by mentioning it in the pipeline, and that will get applied when you are running your Docker image. And just like that, you have successfully navigated the deployment of Docker images from an Azure Container Registry to Azure App Service. Keep experimenting and try to find out what works best for you. Don't forget to share your success stories and questions below. Your feedback fuels our content, so hit the like button, share this video with your network, and subscribe for more tutorials. You can follow the videos here and continue your DevOps journey. Until next time, keep coding smart and keep innovating. Adios.